Hi everyone, and welcome to another Naked Truth. Trisha Hershberger here, and before we get started, I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone that said congratulations on your engagement to last week's Naked Truth. Thank you to everyone who sent in their own naked vlog to last week's Naked Truth. That's Nathan, Pat, Hero, and Patricia, Michael, Julia, John, Lois, Lawrence, Kenny, Jenny, Prescott, and Kristen, Carly, Steve, and Richard. You guys are awesome. Thank you again, and thank you guys for sharing all of your heartwarming stories. It made for a really, really lovely week. So this week I wanted to jump into something that's a little bit more serious. I had a bunch of people reach out to me over the course of these Naked Truths. Ludicrous Kingdom, James Barton, ODST172 are some of them. Basically all reaching out to ask me what my thoughts are on mental illness. Saying a lot of people suffer from various mental illnesses such as anxiety, depression, autism, etc. And basically just bringing up the debate of, is mental illness actually an illness? Is it something that's real, or is it something that's made up as kind of an excuse for people's flaws or weaknesses? And I'm not a doctor. I can give you my personal opinion, and I'm a big supporter of ending the stigma around mental illness. My long story short version of this vlog, if you don't want to watch anymore and just get this little whoop, this is the answer. My whoop answer is that I definitely do think that it's a real problem that a lot of people suffer from. And just to play devil's advocate for a little bit, there's a book that came out called The Myth of Mental Illness. And I can't pronounce the guy's last name, Thomas Says or something like that. But basically he argues in that book that we are an overly therapized society, and that mental illness is something that we kind of made up for ourselves, but it's not an actual illness, and that it's something that mayhaps have been made up by pharmaceutical companies to make more money. And I do think that some of the arguments he makes in there are valid. They're certainly logical arguments, and they follow through to the conclusion. But I would disagree with them for a few reasons, and here they are. Like I said in the beginning, I do think that mental illness is a real problem that people suffer from. And I think that anytime people are suffering from something, it's real to them. And if there is a way or a treatment out there that has been known to help people who are suffering with the same thing, would that not be medicine for that illness? To me, that just makes sense. If there's something that seems to help people struggling from something, then that is an illness to cure type of relationship, or maybe not cure, but medicine or something like that. I think it's easy for people who aren't suffering from any kind of mental illness to look at people who are and think, well, you know, that person who has anorexia is just looking for attention, or that person who's struggling from depression is just a total wuss. And it's because they're thinking, you know, with my fully capable, highly functioning brain working just the way it's supposed to, I'd be able to fix that for myself, so why can't you? And they're missing the part that it's actually a problem that these people are suffering with. So I think that, again, it's very human and it's very natural for us to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and think, well, I could handle that situation. But I think that we should remind ourselves to have a little compassion, because we actually don't know what they're going through. And I myself have never suffered from any serious mental disease, thank goodness. I feel like I'm very lucky that I haven't had to go through that, because it is very, very common. I know I read a statistic, this was just an Australian statistic, that said 1 in every 5 Australians suffers from some type of mental illness in their lifetime. So it's a lot more common than people think. And I think that people don't think it's common because people are afraid to come out and admit that they are suffering or struggling with some type of mental illness, because society does see it as a weakness. They see it as something that you should be able to overcome, which you hear people say, you know, people don't look at someone with cancer and say, well, you should be able to overcome that. And is that, or is that not, a similar type of problem or the same type of problem? I would argue that it is. So how do we get people to understand that mental illness is a real problem? Education, talking about it. I'm a big supporter of #EndTheStigma. I think that anytime people are able to admit that they are not fully capable of doing everything on their own and that maybe they need help, I think that asking for help is a strength. I don't think that it's a weakness, and it shouldn't be seen that way at all. And I think that only by talking about it can we help people to realize that. I mean, just think about in your own lives, anytime that you've ever had to accept the fact that you're not capable of doing something on your own and ask for help, that's really hard to do. And if it's something that's completely taking over your whole life, how much harder would that be to do? I don't know. That's my thoughts. A lot of scientists now agree that mental illness has a bunch of different causes to it. It's biological, it's psychological, and it's societal, which is why they'll say, you know, I can't just give you this pill that cures it. You know, maybe we can start with some type of medicine, see if that helps. Then there's support groups and there's therapy and all of these different means to try to help with this one issue. And to me, all of that treatment for symptoms or treatment for any kind of suffering that people are going through, to me, sounds like an illness and sounds like medical treatment. I do understand that I live in the United States where I feel like over the past 2 decades, a lot of the stigma has been lifted to some degree, but I understand that in other parts of the world, that's not the same. So I'm interested what the Naked Army has to say, because I know we have people from all over the world here about how people treat the idea of mental illness where you are. I don't know. I have said on this channel before that I've seen a therapist. I'm not afraid to admit that. I think that it's one of the smartest things that I ever did. I got to a point in my life where I thought, you know what? Maybe I don't have all the answers, and maybe the things that haven't been going so great in my life that have really been hard for me emotionally to deal with, maybe some of those are my issues that I could talk to someone about who's a professional, and they could help kind of guide me on the right path. And I really felt like that did, and it did help me. And I feel like I'm on a much better path now as far as I understand myself a lot better. I understand my needs and how to communicate those with people. My relationships with people are better, both friendships and romantically. I feel like it did me a world of good, and I would say that everyone should see a therapist at some point in their life whenever you're ready to kind of say, you know what? I deserve to work on me right now. I think it's great, and I just wish that there wasn't a stigma around it, because there's so many people suffering who are afraid to ask for help because they think that they'll be judged, or maybe they're afraid to admit it to themselves because they'll judge themselves. I don't know. Just talk about it. Share with your friends that it's a good thing to go out and ask for help when you need help, and not to be scared of it, because only by seeking treatment can people begin to take control back of their lives. And I will never step forward and say that, you know, I know exactly what it's like to suffer with severe mental illness, because I don't. But I certainly want to do my best to have compassion for the people who are going through something that I can't even begin to understand. So my question this week for you guys is, do you think that mental illness is something that's a real problem, or is it just a myth, and why or why not? So if you want to let me know that in your own Naked Army, Naked Truth response, you can do that. Please send me a video. You can upload it to YouTube and then send me a link, either private or public. Let me know if you want me to share it to the About section of my channel. Click for business inquiries only, and you can send it to me via email that way, and I will be happy to watch it. Or you can just put your thoughts down in the comment section. As always, when we do stuff that's a little more sensitive to people's personal lives, just try to be respectful with your arguments. Certainly make your arguments and make them very firm, but in a way that encourages open dialogue. All right, guys, the Naked Army's the best, and I'll see you next week.